This should have been a celebratory episode. Yoshinobu Yamamoto returned and looked as good as ever. We should be celebrating, but the Dodgers defense said, "Hold my beer," and then they dropped it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Tuesday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My co-host Vince Semperio will be joining us shortly. He's on his way home from Dodger Stadium right now. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And with that said, let's jump right in. This episode, I was looking forward to it for about 2 hours. Yoshinobu Yamamoto was awesome. And I was looking forward to spending most of the episode talking about Yamamoto. We are still going to spend a lengthy second segment talking about Yamamoto because there was a lot of positive from this game if you are looking at the big picture. But the small picture of this game super sucked because in the top of the eighth inning, the Dodgers defense imploded. 3 errors led to 4 unearned runs and or maybe 5 unearned runs. Was Vesia's run unearned too? No, Vesia's was earned. 4 unearned runs against Evan Phillips, 5 runs total to turn a 3-1 Dodgers lead into a 6-3 Cubs lead. And the Dodgers, that ended up being the final score. So that's what we get to talk about at the start instead. It makes me glad that we're not just a recap show, because then we'd have to spend like the whole episode talking about how much that sucked. But we do have bigger picture stuff to talk about. This is a big picture show. And like I said, there were some good things that happened in this game. And we're going to get to all of those. But you can't just gloss over the fact that it was one of the ugliest losses of the season. I guess part of the sad thing is that you have to say one of the ugliest losses of the season when you give up 5 runs, including 4 unearned in the 8th inning, because the Dodgers have had some pretty clunkerish losses. This one wasn't their biggest blown lead. Obviously, they've blown multiple 5-run leads this year, so blowing a 2-run lead isn't bad by those standards, I guess, the way it happened, because honestly, the Dodgers defense this year hasn't been amazing, but it's been solid. And the errors that happened were just kind of dumb. Austin Barnes, just a little tapper in front of the plate. I mean, we'll just go over the whole inning, because Alex Vesia pitched the 7th inning, and then Dave Roberts left Alex Vesia in to start the 8th inning just for one batter. It was just for Ian Happ, because Ian Happ is much better batting left-handed than batting right-handed. And so it was sorry, I just saw a comment saying the Dodgers are going to lose the West. I disagree. The Dodgers aren't going to lose the West. The Dodgers aren't going to lose a bye in the first round. The Dodgers are going to win the National League West. So that's why I'm able to stay positive. But anyway, so Alex Vesia stays in just to face Ian Happ, walks him on 4 pitches. Unacceptable, but it is what it is, I guess. Next guy, Tapper in front of the plate. Austin Barnes fields it and makes a bad throw, pulls Freddie Freeman off the bag. Suddenly it's 1st and 2nd with nobody out. And then the wheels kind of came off. Evan Phillips was in by this point. He came in after Vesia's walk. He gives up a base hit up the middle and scores 1 run. Tommy Edman tries to throw the guy out at 3rd. Some sort of miscommunication. It's kind of a bummer that Edman gets a throwing error on that, because Miguel Rojas could have cut the ball off. Max Muncy at 3rd base looked like he thought that Rojas was going to cut the ball off. Rojas didn't cut the ball off, and so it missed 3rd base by 10 feet, ended up in the dugout, and the 2nd run of that play scored, and it was suddenly a tie game. And then there's another then they walk somebody. So it's 1st and 2nd, and then a ground ball to Kike Hernandez at 2nd base. Could have been a double play ball, should have been at least 1 out for sure. Instead, Kike booted the ball, and everybody's safe. And the guy who had been on second scored because Kike booted it all the way into shallow left field. Suddenly it's 4-3. Then Phillips actually gives up another hit, a 2-run double. Then he gets 2 outs. All in all, it was just like, yes, Phillips gave up a 2-run double. He had already gotten 4 outs at that point. You're only supposed to have to get 3. He had gotten 4 at that point. He got 2 more later. Ended up having to get 6 outs in that inning. And you can't win a game like that, unfortunately. I guess if there's a silver lining to this, it is that the defense hasn't been this bad. This, when the bullpen implodes, you can start to think, crap, this is going to happen in the postseason, all that stuff. This one, it's like they were dumb little fluky errors, including Austin Barnes won't be catching very often at all in the postseason, which is good because the one thing he used to bring to the table is defense. He doesn't bring that anymore. He did get a hit tonight, but overall, I was shocked earlier in the game. I felt like Craig Counsell was trying to give the Dodgers the game when Pete Crow-Armstrong, who, by the way, I'm tired of, go away PCA. We should chant that, go away PCA, make posters and stuff. But Pete Crow-Armstrong was on first base with 1 out, and they sack bunted when they could have just had Pete Crow-Armstrong steal second base because he's fast and Austin Barnes has a noodle for an arm. But instead they sack bunted, gave the Dodgers an out, and then the next guy got out. That was it. Crazy to me that you would sack bunt when there's an easy stolen base available. But they did. But anyway, so Barnes won't make errors in the postseason probably because he won't have the opportunity to. Edman's throwing error was a fluke. Kike, if he does play second base in the postseason, like that's a play Kike makes 98 times out of 100. It was just, they were all just dumb, fluky errors. And when you get 3 dumb, fluky errors in one inning, sometimes you give up 5 runs. It ruined a night. This comment that it ruined Yoshinobu Yamamoto's stellar performance. Yeah, it did, because like I said at the beginning, this should be a celebratory episode, and we'll get there because there is a lot to celebrate. But, even though this game isn't going to cost the Dodgers the division, even though, we're going to look back when the Dodgers win the division by 5 or 6 games, we're going to look back and say, okay, that game was ultimately meaningless. It sure is frustrating as fans who, we want our team to win every game. And I think I'm probably more okay than a lot of people with them not winning every game, because I do understand it's a long season. And in my old age, I've forced myself to understand and respect that no team wins every game. And so you are going to lose some games and stuff. But when you're up 3-1 in the 8th inning, and you get 6 outs in an inning in the 8th inning, you should win that game. Like, once you get 6 outs after you're up 3-1, the game should be over. Instead, the 8th inning was over and the Dodgers were losing. And that's the part that's frustrating. So even though on a grand scheme of things level, I'm not that frustrated tonight, this game, yeah, it's frustrating. It is. And I'm glad on a game like tonight that I don't allow myself to get angry about regular season games. I'll save that. If this game happened in the postseason, this episode will be a lot different, because postseason games by definition are extremely important, every single one of them. Regular season games, the fact is, even though a lot of fans don't want to admit it, regular season games aren't all super important. Every once in a while, you do have a season where you end up winning the division or losing the division by 1 game. Most of the time, it's not that. And one single game doesn't actually end up mattering. And the games that you win that you should have lost, like that game in Colorado earlier this year, Dodgers should have lost that one. They won that one. The game like this, they should have won. They lost. Those things kind of even out over the course of the year. In the postseason, they matter. And so hopefully we won't see anything like this in the postseason. Comment from Ghost Bear, the news about Anthony Banda is frustrating too. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the 3rd segment. Anthony Banda's news. If you haven't heard, you want to stick around for that, because that's pretty interesting. We're getting more information right now as the game is over about that. So yeah, frustrating loss. Dodgers lose 6-3, a game that they absolutely should have won. Part of the reason they should have won is because Yoshinobu Yamamoto was awesome. And we're going to talk about that when I come back in a second. I think Vince will be about with me. He's home. He's setting up right now. So around the time I am done reading this ad, Vince will be joining me. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, I love sports, I love concerts, I love comedy shows. The thing they all have in common is buying tickets. And that means the other thing they have in common is that you can find the best price on Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting your tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I mentioned the other day when I was down at the Shohei Ohtani bobblehead night about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago now, I guess. I didn't even buy parking until I was in line for the parking lot with millions of my closest friends waiting for an hour and a half for the parking lot gates to open. That's when I pulled out the Game Time app on my phone, sitting there outside the parking lot, and I bought my parking pass right there on Game Time, and it was cheap and easy. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, game tickets, any kind of tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. I am back, and guess what? Vince is here with me now. So, welcome, Vince.
Yo.
Thank you all again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks again to those of you who are with us live here tonight. Vince just got home from the stadium, as I mentioned. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Text directly with us, get our thoughts on stuff before the podcast, and have one-on-one conversations. It's just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. Also, please check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. Locked On Sports LA is where you can find the Locked On Dodgers postcast, hosted by Pete Fox after most Dodgers games. You can also, for your second listen today, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan. You can call him Sully. Covers all of Major League Baseball. It's a lot of fun. And remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. So, Vince, in the first segment, we covered the debacle. And now I think we're ready to be positive, because the fact is, as much as this game sucked, I'm sure there was a lot of groans at the stadium. I'm sure it was a frustrating game to be at in person. But in the grand scheme, the big picture, today was a good day for the Dodgers because Yoshinobu Yamamoto returned and was, I'd say, better than we could have hoped for. And Brusdar Graterol returned, was fine, but having him back, we'll talk about Graterol in the next segment and the unfortunate corresponding roster move that went with that. But Yamamoto, 4 innings, 8 strikeouts, 4 hits. Not like he was unhittable, but he was kind of unhittable too. Just like I said, better than we could have hoped for, right, Vince?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think maybe in the most positive thinking you could have, this is what you had in mind for Yamamoto. And even then, like, 8 of his first 9 outs were strikeouts. Like, I don't think that I had that chalked up at all. I saw him on Prize Picks actually at 4 strikeouts, and I was hesitant to choose. Well, I was hesitant to choose over because I didn't think he was going to get more, and I was hesitant to choose less because every time I do that with the Dodger, they do the opposite. So I left it alone. But yeah, it's not just a fact of him looking good, him touching 98, like all that type of stuff. It was the movement on the pitches. It was obviously the command and the control. Like, the splitter was nasty. The curveball was nasty. Like, he was placing the fastball, and he did ramp it up to, 97, 98 at times. And for what we saw in his first start ever over there in Korea, and then him being really good after that, but then having this long layoff, not necessarily looking the best in the rehab assignments, which we've talked about doesn't always mean anything. I don't think there was any more positive way he could look than he did tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the command was the big thing. That's always a big concern when somebody comes back from injury, and you never really know what's the dividing line where you've been out long enough that you are going to have major worries about command. Obviously, it's been a big issue for Walker Buehler and Bobby Miller this year. And some of that has to do with the injuries, but we don't know how much. And so that was a major concern here for Yamamoto. And it was all of his pitches, like his full pitch mix he was using. He was commanding it. He was throwing the high fastball, getting swings and misses on that. Obviously, the breaking balls, the stuff with movement, you're going to get some swing and miss on when you can command it. It was, again, it's one start, but he went 60 pitches or almost 60 pitches. I don't remember what the final pitch count was. I actually have it right here. 59 pitches. Would have gone 60 pitches. Got a double play to get out of the inning in the fourth inning. That means that next time out, he can probably go 70 or 75. And now it's realistic to think that Yamamoto could be built up to 90, 95 pitches by the time the playoffs roll around, which would mean, basically, hey, we might get 6 innings in a playoff start out of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Throw that in with Jack Flaherty. Like, just Yamamoto being back for me totally changes my outlook on the postseason, because it's always going to be a question of, does the offense show up? But you can go really deep in the playoffs with 2 really good starting pitchers and a really good offense. Now, that means your really good pitchers have to pitch really well, and your really good offense has to show up. That's always the question. That's the thing that keeps Vince up at night every night of his life is, are the Dodgers going to hit in October? We know the Dodgers have hitters. We know they can hit. And now we know there's a good chance they're going to have at least 2 really good starters. Now we'll see if Tyler Glasnow can get back and give us a trifecta. But, man, I feel a lot better about things than I did 24 hours ago.
Yeah, I think the main part, too, with Yamamoto right now, or specifically, his outing, is no other Dodger pitcher the last 2 nights has really shut down the Cubs. Michael Grove threw a scoreless inning, and then today, there was a couple scoreless innings in there, but they haven't been striking out that many guys. Like, the Cubs have hit every other Dodger pitcher to a certain extent, and Yamamoto shut them down. Yeah, they did get a couple hits. He wouldn't have gave up the run if Freddie might have taken a step forward a little bit earlier, or if that ball didn't take a bounce off his chest. But either way, like, he was shutting down teams that other pitchers on the Dodgers haven't. So that's the big part. Like, if you could say, like, oh, blah, 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 whatever, it's the Cubs, or any other excuse you can make is, well, look at none of the other Dodgers pitchers that have been here and not, missing 3 months, have been pitching this well. So that's what was encouraging. And, yeah, everything else kind of fell in line with that in terms of the command, the control, and the velocity. Everything kind of looked good. And Dave Roberts before the game kind of said, with Yamamoto and with Glasnow, who threw a bullpen on Tuesday and should throw again. So sim game on Friday, and then after that would rejoin the Dodgers, assuming all goes well. Roberts said basically, like, we're getting whatever we can out of these guys, however built up they get. Glasnow, Yamamoto, Gavin Stoney comes back. Basically, however built up they get, that's what they're going to go with. And, hopefully it works out, but they're going to trust these arms that have the ability to pitch very well. And for Yamamoto, he showed that, maybe that trust and maybe him being ready to go, like, he's going to make at least 2 more starts, which means he can get up to that 85, 90 pitches, like you just mentioned, which means with, another sim game in between, if the Dodgers get the bye and then heading into that first start, like, he could be built up back to 9,500 pitches very easily.
It will be interesting to see, assuming everything goes well with Glasnow's sim game and he does come back, if they have him in a piggyback role, if they drop a reliever from the roster, just drop Honeywell when Glasnow comes back and just have Glasnow and Bobby Miller piggyback, or some combination, one of the guys who may or may not belong in a starting rotation right now, but can still give you multiple innings. See how that goes. But yeah, they are going to have to get Glasnow built up, and he probably won't be at 90 pitches, 95 pitches built up by the time the playoffs start, which probably relegates him to the number 3 starter one way or another, just for reasons of being built up. But you know what? I bet there's a lot of teams that would love to have get Tyler Glasnow as their number 3 starter in the postseason. Yeah.
So it's, the loss sucks, and I'm sure you talked about how much and how annoying and everything about that inning implosion all kind of summed it up. But Yamamoto coming out healthy, assuming he comes out healthy tomorrow and everything is good, that's, more than valuable than a win to a certain extent.
For sure. Speaking of healthy pitchers, we're going to come back in a second. We are going to talk about one pitcher who was healthy until last night and another pitcher who we thought might not be healthy again this year, and we saw him pitch tonight. Anthony Banda, Brusdar Graterol, we'll talk about that, plus Tommy Edman, Max Muncy. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's number one fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. It's the easiest, most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the excitement and win up to 100 times your money watching sports with Prize Picks. You could turn $10 into $1,000 while watching your favorite sports. Make a Prize Picks lineup of players across all different sports in as little as 60 seconds. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5, even if you don't win, and get 4 weeks of free W's because 1 passing yard from Caleb Williams gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Hey, we are back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. If you're not an everydayer, maybe add 1 or 2 days a week to your rotation, and eventually you will be an everydayer. Everydayer is just somebody who watches or listens every week, every weekday morning, or every night before every weekday morning if you're watching us live, like a bunch of you are tonight. Remember to go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. Check out Locked On MLB for your second listen today, and catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. So we got word before the game. We had heard that Brusdar Graterol was going to be activated on Wednesday, and then we got word before the game tonight, Tuesday, that Graterol had been activated and Anthony Banda had been placed on the injured list with a fractured left hand. We didn't get details before the game. We did after the game, but I think the details that we got after the game were basically what we all assumed when we heard the news beforehand, because a left-handed pitcher fractures his left hand between when he pitched poorly and the next time we hear of him. Usually it is the left-handed pitcher punched something because he was frustrated about pitching poorly. That appears to be what happened. Dave Roberts said he took out his frustration on a solid object, and that's bad news for Banda. Bad news for the Dodgers. He's been pretty good this year. We had talked about him. He probably could use a little break. Didn't necessarily think we meant an actual literal break, but that's what he got in his hand. They said he won't throw for a few days. It might not be a super big fracture. 15 days takes us almost to the end of the season. And so things would have to be very minor, and things would have to go really, really smoothly for Banda to really have a chance to come back this year and pitch in the postseason.
Yeah. I remember us talking about Devin Williams a few years ago when the Dodgers were going to play the Brewers in the postseason, or when they had a chance to, whatever it was. And, he did the same thing and hurt himself right before the playoffs. And you think, maybe somebody would learn from that, or just from the fact of, I'm pretty sure solid objects against hands and arms and everything else and feet are probably undefeated at this point. Maybe an occasional rare win here and there and some freak, type of accident. But yeah, it's, you understand the frustration, but there's different ways to take that out. And unfortunately for Banda, he learned it the hard way. And yeah, I think in terms of him coming back, at the very least, he's going to be on some type of taxi squad if everything goes perfect and he ends up, recovering in time and all that type of stuff. But it's a loss in the sense of, if you care about righty lefties, the Dodgers lose a lefty after seeing, I think the problem with Brasier is coming back out for another inning. I didn't get to talk about that in that first segment, but I think that was more the issue rather than him specifically. I know I still don't trust him, but he gets the job done. And, when he's used in the right way, he can be pretty good. But if you care about that stuff, righty lefty, it's a little bit of a loss for the Dodger bullpen.
About that, it was. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we did talk a little bit about that. I think it was just to face Ian Happ, just to turn him around. But yeah, you can't walk a dude on 4 pitches when the only reason you're in the game is to face him. And, they do have guys who, when they are at their best, they are split neutral. Ryan Brasier at his best, Daniel Hudson at his best, they are just as effective against lefties as they are against righties. Obviously, Michael Kopech has been effective against everybody since he came to the Dodgers. So maybe it's not that big a deal to only have the one lefty in the bullpen, but it's frustrating for sure. The good news was that meant that Brusdar Graterol had a spot to come back, and he did pitch in this game. He did fine. It was nothing amazing. He allowed 2 hits in his 1 inning, ended up throwing, 21 pitches in his 1 inning of work, which is, probably not as efficient as he would have liked to have been. Didn't strike anybody out, which has kind of always been the thing with Graterol. He's never gotten as many strikeouts as you would expect a guy who throws as hard as he does to get. He did get some weight contact, which is what Graterol does. And ultimately, just having him back was exciting because, we watched him walk off the mound a month ago. It was just over a month, right? It was early August that he walked off that mound, and we thought that he was done for the year for sure. And now he's back and is a viable option. We'll see. It's important to remember, with these 21 pitches he threw tonight, he's now up to 29 pitches this season. So there's still a lot to be seen over the last couple of weeks of the season about what Graterol is going to bring. Graterol is another guy who, when he is at his best, he is just as effective against lefties as he is against righties. And so that could be a huge addition for the Dodgers and a pleasant surprise not surprise. Like, we did find out pretty early in his rehab process, maybe he's not out for the whole season, but still, it was kind of one of those, I'll believe it when I see it things. And now I've seen it. And so I guess by definition, I have to believe it, right?
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah. Other good things about this game, Tommy Edman hadn't hit a home run with the Dodgers. Tonight, after he had seen 2 pitches, he had 2 home runs off of a really tough pitcher. Every time Edman comes up, batting right-handed, they talk about how he's better right-handed. I always feel like he looks better left-handed, but maybe it's just, I think I definitely have some Tommy Edman PTSD of big moments he's had against the Dodgers. And I think some of those must have come when he was batting left-handed, because I think he's really good from either side. But we saw that he hit 2 home runs right-handed tonight. And, maybe it was batting cleanup that did it for him. Only the second time in his career he's batted cleanup. He's like, well, I got to hit home runs then. It was definitely a welcome added dimension of Tommy Edman's game.
It was, I always assume switch hitters are better from the left side for whatever reason. It's one of those where, well, if you bat lefty and then you can bat good enough righty to kind of eliminate the whatever lefty magic is going on, then that's probably the case. It's not always the case, but I do feel like lefty's probably the normal one. But yeah, that was good to see. Maybe the center field defense or that one ball, I feel like maybe he could have got to, but on the offensive side for him, this is basically, almost still like spring training for him, or at least maybe the first couple weeks of the season. Like, he went through the rehab assignment, and he's been playing, with the Dodgers for a little while now, but he's still in the early parts of the stage. So if, he can get more comfortable moving forward and the bat that he brings. And, if it's one of those where with Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman getting on a lot of the time, if Tommy Edman can add a little thump and, be the not strikeout guy, maybe that is someone that bats number 4. It's a little bit unconventional, but there's really no conventions anymore when it comes to lineup, realistically. Like, if you have your best hitters at the top, and if you're going to have, Ohtani on base, Mookie on base, Freddie on base, and you have a contact guy there, that might be something that could work out for the Dodgers.
Yeah, a contact guy who hits line drives. You can find a lot of good spots for him. And even if he ends up at the bottom of the order, as we expect, that's very valuable too, because he's a guy who can get on base ahead of Ohtani, which right now, maybe Ohtani coming up with guys on base isn't what you want, apparently. My brother joked tonight, the Dodgers need to get Kevin Biggio back so he can bat ninth so that Ohtani doesn't come up with any runners on base. But you'd think Austin Barnes would do the trick, but tonight he actually got on base. But yeah, overall, really encouraging performance from Edman. Max Muncy hit a home run, almost hit another home run. I saw MLB's Twitter account referring to it as a home run robbery. That ball wasn't going out. PCA didn't rob a home run on that last play. In fact, if
he hadn't fully jump,
if he hadn't caught the ball, it would have been overturned and it would have been called out on a fan interference because that ball wasn't getting out of the state over the fence. But it was still a nice play. PCA made way too many good plays. But Muncy hitting a home run off a lefty was encouraging. And, Muncy's been pretty good. I guess, I just saw this comment that nobody's talking enough about Ryan Brasier. And that's probably true, too. He did pitch an inning tonight. So now, since coming back from the injured list, he's now thrown 11 2/3 innings, allowed just 7 base runners, hasn't walked anybody. That's pretty a big deal for him. And just allowed 2 runs, both in one game that was kind of a blowout game for the Dodgers. Brazier's been really good. I still
if you're a middle to like somewhat high leverage reliever and we don't talk about you, that's probably a good that's a good thing.
Yeah. If we're not talking about you, that means you're not doing things like driving us crazy. Ultimately, other than Vesia walking that dude on 4 pitches, like even though Evan Phillips got the loss, he gave up 4 unearned runs. He, like I said in the first segment, he had gotten 4 outs before he gave up the 2-run double. So that should have been enough to get him out of the inning. Instead, it wasn't. And so, the bullpen was solid today. Yamamoto was good. The entire team allowed 2 earned runs. And one of those, Yamamoto's earned run, might get changed to unearned if they end up calling it an error on Freddie Freeman in that second inning. The pitching was really good. The offense was okay at times. Definitely didn't capitalize on their chances, but scoring 3 runs off Imanaga in 7 innings, that'll get you a win a lot of the time. It didn't tonight because of the defense. And like I said in the first segment, ultimately, because this isn't a constant problem with the Dodger defense, it's a little bit easier for me to brush it aside and say, okay, well, at least that game's not going to happen again.
Yeah, it's at least the type of like things that happen, like the ball coming in from the outfield and getting into the dugout, and that play with Kike, maybe trying to do a little bit too much. It's all little things that could happen and maybe will happen in games that matter a lot more, but it's not characteristics of easy ground balls getting booted or anything like that. And then on the offensive side, it's just sometimes you against a good pitcher, you get 3 runs and, he maybe stay in the game a little longer than you wanted him to, but you put up 3 runs, you give it to your bullpen, didn't quite work out. The one concern with the Dodgers bullpen, and I'm very high on the Dodgers bullpen, is just they don't necessarily have the strikeout stuff. So you do want a lot of guys with clean innings, and, the up-down hasn't served a lot of these relievers well. But again, it's like, would Dave Roberts have not liked to use Vesia maybe coming off that? Probably, but like just the way the bullpen's been used the last few weeks, you're gonna try to steal outs here and there, and it's sometimes up to the guy. Like, okay, if you're gonna walk a guy, just don't do it on 4 pitches. Like, make it competitive at least.
You got it. Yeah, you put the players in position to make plays. Master Laps has had a lot of comments in the chat that I've disagreed with tonight, but absolutely, if you are sitting in the home run seats at Dodger Stadium, bring your dadgum glove. The whole reason you're there is to catch a home run, and you're trying to catch a ball with your hat. Come on, people. That's going to do it for us tonight. You got anything else, Vince?
No, we'll look forward to talking about whatever happens with Bobby Miller, I guess.
Yeah, Joe Davis didn't mean for it to sound ominous when he said the Dodgers look to avoid the sweep by sending Bobby Miller to the mound tomorrow, but it sounded kind of ominous. Hopefully he'll surprise us and we'll have a happy episode tomorrow. That'll do it for us. Thank you all for being with us live. Thank you for making us your first listen. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. You'll be on the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning. We hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.